look across our grid images here as we take a look at the riders one by one as they get ready to go out there. And across the front row, we've got, just like the world was before me, getting ready to start this race, and I know you've got a couple of favorites.
Yeah, Travis is riding good. He's on the front row, and Cody's coming along too. He's been struggling a little bit to get going this year, but you know, proud of both of those guys.
Who's the fastest Wyman?
I guess we got to line them up.
Yeah, sadly, we don't have all three in the same race, or we could answer that question as we get ready to go. Chief Grid Marshal Beth Miller putting the red flag up, taking it back down again. She steps off to the side, and in a matter of moments, we'll be underway with an 18-lap Superstock 600 race. And here we go. Away they go for 18 laps. Looked like a pretty good, fair start. And as they head down into turn number one, Kyle Wyman, this is a pretty exciting part of the racetrack and a pretty exciting part of the race.
Yeah, in turn one.
Well, somebody's taking a little agricultural experience.
Yep, 35 bikes on the grid. I think this is going to be a pretty crazy first lap.
Almost everybody safely, well, everybody safely through turn one. Somebody took a long detour out there from about two-thirds of the way back in the field. And it looks like up front it's Joe Roberts. To no one's surprise, this young man has dominated all the practices and qualifying, and he, with all due respect to your two brothers racing out there, is the guy to beat.
Yeah, Joe, he's riding awesome. You know, he's really been putting it down, throwing the pace down early. And looks like Travis is right there, Richie Escalante as well. Those guys are really the two guys that can show him something. So hopefully they can tag on and give him a race.
Well, the three of them have been the stars of this class since we began at Road Atlanta a couple of weeks ago, and there's no reason to expect anything different. That your brother Travis, that Joe Roberts, and as you say, Richie Escalante, the young rider from Mexico, who's been really showing some good stuff out there. Roberts already opening just the tiniest little bit of a gap, but these guys, their job is to really keep him close and not let him get away.
Yeah, already it's a trio. You know, the gap behind Escalante has already opened up quite a bit, so it looks like three riders again, just like we saw in Atlanta.
Well, those three, at least two of them, what they have to try to do is get in front of Joe somehow and slow him down. If that's not possible, they at least have to stick with him and hope for a little mistake or whatever, or as we saw in the Super Sport race, an opportunity to make one surgical move like Josh Herron did to see if you can't beat Joe Roberts. It's been a tough job in the past, and it hasn't gotten any easier this season either. Joe Roberts out in front right now. Travis Wyman in second position. Richie Escalante third. It looks as though the guys behind may be trying to gather themselves a little bit and see if they can't put in some laps and close that gap. But boy, once Joe Roberts puts his head down, he really hits his marks and is able to put those laps together. It's just a thing of beauty to watch him ride.
It's been impressive. You know, Richie's been able to close the gaps a little bit. If you can get up there and just show him a wheel at least, maybe force a mistake or something, but man, he's clicking them off pretty well. He's hitting all his apexes. Everything looks good.
Yep, Escalante in second position, Joe Roberts first, Travis Wyman in third spot right now, and that's the way they head across the top on the crossover. Down the hill now they come to finish lap number 2, and it's Joe Roberts out in front right now, clicking off those quick laps. We're up here with Kyle Wyman, who has two of his brothers, Travis and Cody, both racing in the Superstock 600 class. What, you know, as a team owner at your age, you're really quite precocious, I would have to say. You've taken on a lot of responsibility, and you've been very successful in doing it.
There's definitely a lot going on. You know, it's tough to ride and manage the team at the same time, but it's really rewarding also, you know, when things go right, not just on the racetrack, but off the racetrack. You know, Winning Technologies is our title sponsor for all three of us, and they do a great job supporting us. There's a lot going on, but, you know, this is what we look for.
To start as a racer at a young age is pretty normal, but to start as a team owner at your age is something pretty special. And I would have to say that, you know, if you thought about it further down the line, you know, 20, 30 years from now, you'll certainly have the edge on the competition if you continue to own a team.
Sure, you know, I'd like to put myself in a position to be just a rider at some point, but I know that, you know, someday if I do need to just go run a team, I might have a little bit of experience in it, so it works out.
You know how it's done. We talked a lot about Elena taking the same path, that she's decided to put matters in her own hands run her own team, be the team owner and the rider as well. So I'm sure you can empathize with her and her situation. And then on the other side of the coin, Aussie Dave Anthony decides after 4, 5, 6 years of running a team, he's just going to be a rider this season and goes the other way. I guess maybe you might look forward to that at some point. You already said in your future.
Yeah, for sure. That would be an ideal scenario. Man, we're watching a race cook up here. Richie Escalante is really putting the pressure on Joe Roberts right now. Yeah,
he certainly is. And up the front straightaway, they go side by side. Escalante the long way around down into turn number 1, but he got a great drive off the corner. Roberts doesn't panic, just maintains his braking marker and rolls it into turn number 1 to hold on to the lead. But he knows Richie Escalante is there, not because he can hear him, but because he got a good look at him up alongside. Roberts still leading, but Escalante right there. Not a wheel in between the two of them as we speak. Travis is right there as well, not far behind. Travis in third spot, maybe half a second back, something like that. He's got the best seat in the house for what is turning into a very good race.
It'll be interesting to see if these guys don't start battling too much and they slow themselves down. That would be the best opportunity for Travis to close the gap, but right now they're setting a pretty hot pace.
Yeah, Bryce Prince is also lurking in the distance there, not too far behind Travis. 28.4 for the leader. Actually, Escalante quicker that time and first across the line. 28.7 for Roberts, 28.9 for Travis, 29.1 for Bryce Prince. And those are the 4 guys putting up the quick lap times right now. Here goes Joe Roberts, has opened a little bit of a gap once again. He rides he just doesn't seem to make very many mistakes. If you're going to force a mistake, I don't think that's an easy job for anybody on Joe Roberts. Up the front straightaway they go. Last time Escalante close enough to pull alongside, not this time. Let's see what Roberts does as he comes across the line. 128.2, so he went just a little bit quicker. Escalante 128.4. And he stayed about the same lap time, so Joe Roberts picked his pace up by a couple of tenths of a second, and we're seeing the results of it right here. Talk about this part of the racetrack right here that they're on now. I spent a little bit of time talking with Aaron Stevenson, who runs the corner spin schools here, and he says that little section of S's is kind of a sneaky place to make a move, but it's possible to do up in the turn 4 area. What's your experience there?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a tough area for sure. That the goal is to get as straight a line as possible through there and get off the edge of the tire and get to wide open throttle as soon as possible. But man, if you're not careful, somebody can sneak up the inside if you leave the door open. Double apex.
Joe Roberts hard on the brakes at the top of the hill and now coming down towards the hog pen area past what is one of the most popular spectator viewing areas on this downhill section, this kind of roller coaster that leads onto the front straightaway, carrying a lot of speed onto that front straightaway. Now, we saw with Josh Herron, he made his one move up there at the top of the hill. It's pretty hard to make a pass from there on down. You're just carrying so much speed through that final corner, right, Kyle Wyman?
Yeah, from that point, the track's pretty narrow. It's pretty one line. At that point, you really want to try and set up a draft move to the start-finish line.
And yet even that is difficult because the draft doesn't work so well when you're on the side of the tire. You know, that draft is getting sort of pushed off to the side, and if you're trying to go around the outside, you're going the long way to the line.
It's about the straightaway.
Yeah, you betcha. I rode around in a car with one of the fellows doing the noontime rides, and he said it's actually a straightaway with 3 turns in it. Here they go again through that S section and towards the Nissan Bridge. Another classic passing opportunity there going into turn number 7. Escalante almost up alongside, but Roberts holds him off again. We're 5 laps into this 18-lap race. Joe Roberts not able to get away. They've gotten away from Travis, the 2 of them, but Escalante's hanging tough.
I saw a little squirm from Roberts coming out of 7, lost the rear for just a moment. Didn't really upset him too much, but I'd be interested to know what tire compounds these guys have chosen. It seems like the soft is kind of the way to go today.
And there are 2 choices, right?
Yep, the soft tire, the 2662 from Dunlop, and also the 7455, which is the medium.
So there are 2 choices of tires, and you think okay, based on what you're seeing, and it's a little early, do you think they've got a different tire choice? Escalante comes up alongside again and may have crossed the line in first. Nope, he didn't actually get across the line in first place, but he was certainly alongside Roberts. Do you think they're probably on the same tires? First of all, start with the front. Is it pretty much a one-front choice?
I think everybody's pretty much on the medium front,
right.
7.455. It's definitely too early to tell looking at these guys with only 6 laps in the books. So, you know, as we get closer to the end, it'll be probably a little bit easier to tell if somebody's got a tire falling away.
Right now, they are in lockstep, one right behind the other. And again, I've been joined in the booth here by Kyle Wyman. His brothers Travis and Cody both are racing in this class. Travis currently running third. And let's see, looking up here, is it a comfortable third or has he got company? It looks like Bryce Prince was making some ground. But right now, yes, Bryce Prince and Travis are sort of together. We haven't seen them yet. There's only a half a second difference between. Joe Roberts once again at the top of the hill. Flawless so far. As you said, one little wiggle, and that was about it. Escalante looking very smooth. We don't know a lot about Richie Escalante. Have you seen more of him than we have maybe out west?
I don't know. I've just heard of him this year, and he seems to be, I think he's one of the champions in Mexico.
We're going to have to, yep. Jonathan Green nodding his head over there says indeed he is. But, he certainly has come here with unknown credentials for the most part to us, but he's impressed me, certainly. He's impressed us already in just the 2 races that have been held thus far.
Also, I understand that he's done some CEV Spanish Moto2 stuff as well.
Okay, well, that accounts for... well, it doesn't account for his talent, but it certainly accounts for his skill. That's where you hone some real skills over there in that Spanish championship. And of course, the riders that they've produced over the years are now at the top of all the international series, MotoGP riders, largely from that Spanish CEV championship or the Italian championship as well.
Joe Roberts, of course, Red Bull Rookies Cup over in Europe. My brother Travis was in the U.S. Red Bull Rookies Cup here in 2008, so obviously pretty stacked grid we've got in these top 3, and we know why they're fast.
Yeah, it is, and it's not only a stacked grid, but it's a pretty full one. This is the biggest grid of any of the classes that we run. The closest to the kind of grid limits we used to have 30-some-odd riders out there on the track. Of course, they've gotten spread out just a little bit. We look back further in the field, and we know there's some great battles going on, but this one is so compelling that we're kind of sticking with it in terms of our television coverage. But as you can see, rolling across the top of the screen, the different positions of the riders that are out there. We'll run them down for you as well. It is Joe Roberts and Richie Escalante together in first and second. It's definitely Travis Wyman and Bryce Prince together in third and fourth. It seems to be kind of a 2-by-2 process because Wyatt Ferris and J.C. Camacho are together in fifth and sixth positions. Then you've got a pretty good herd of riders there, beginning with seventh place Jason Aguilar, Curtis Murray, Chris Crossland is another second back or so, and then you've got a couple more guys, Andy DeBrino and Nick McFadden. That makes up the first 11 riders. Then we go down to Connor Blevins, Michael Gilbert, Jay Newton, all the way down through 22nd place Jeremy Simmons. It's a pretty full field of riders, and there are little packs of racers all over the track. Roberts now, for the first time, looking like he's opening a gap he can sort of work with.
Definitely, Richie's no longer breathing down his neck for sure, but man, these guys are kind of a little bit of an accordion, you know. Richie will bring him back, and then Joe will stretch it out a little bit, but for the most part, they're kind of pacing each other.
Yeah, very similar lap times, consistently in the low 28s, 128.1 for Joe Roberts, 128.0 for Richie Escalante, while the rest of the field runs in the 29s and the minute 30 bracket. These two have certainly demonstrated their superiority in terms of lap times, the only two in the 1 minute 28 second range. Here comes Escalante closing it up just a little bit more again. Joe Roberts squirts off the turn and takes another bike length or two out of him, though. They're certainly close enough. A little tiny mistake by Roberts will put Escalante right behind him again. Halfway point. Lap 9 of 18 is what we're on right now. Joe Roberts, in spite of his young age, certainly has a lot of experience. And as you already mentioned, Red Bull Rookies Cup, he's raced a full season in the Super Sport, what used to be called Super Sport, a couple of years ago. He even moved up for a wild card ride in the Super Sport class this season, this year at Texas. He's got a great deal of experience, even though he's still a very young rider. Joe Roberts picking the front wheel up there, setting it down pretty hard, going into turn 10. Escalante is definitely still right there. There's no change really in the gap between them for the last couple of laps.
And just last lap, they went the fastest lap of the race, 27.792 from Joe, 27.954 from Richie Escalante. So that's smoking right now this late in the race.
And now we are indeed going back a little bit further, looking at Travis Wyman. Here's your brother. And he's got a decent gap to work with there. And even though Bryce Prince is fairly close to him, it looks like Travis has got this one pretty well under control for the moment at least.
Yeah, he'll get his pit board and he'll get the gap back and just try to manage that gap. At this point, he's probably cut his losses and try and just keep it on the podium. There's probably there's a 10-second gap back to Travis from Richie Escalante now. So really just trying to hang in there.
Yeah, he's going to try to solidify that final spot on the podium. He's not really, doesn't really have an opportunity to move forward. What he's really got to be concerned about is defending that position against Bryce Prince behind him. Here's Roberts again, under the bridge. Flawless performance so far. Now we're getting into the point of the race where we might begin to see a little bit of evidence of any sort of tire wear, any sort of traction going off. But so far, it's still, the bikes look pretty planted. And as you said, Kyle, the fastest lap of the race, they just turned in on lap 9. Onto the front straightaway again. Escalante actually technically led one lap, but other than that, it's been all Joe Roberts as they complete lap number 11.
This is really the part of the race where it's going to start coming down to that tire wear, fitness as well. It's really hot today. You know, I just finished a 23-lap Super Sport race, and it was pretty tough towards the end. So, you know, these guys now 11 laps in, it's gonna see, you know, who spent the most time in the gym on the bicycle, and who's got the best setup for the end of the race.
Well, I think that's a very important several points to make. That you know, fitness and training being what it is today, you know, you can't. It used to be some years ago, you know, back in the quote old days, nobody trained, you know, and I think there were a couple of riders that came along that sort of changed that attitude. Certainly Randy Renfro was a guy that always demonstrated that being fit, it served you well. And we had Dale Quarterly up here telling us the same thing. And then I think Matt Mladen took it to a whole new level when he began to really start training hard, showing people that that's exactly what you had to do. We need Thomas Claymore. Please report to the closest security personnel. Thomas Claymore, please, if you could, find somebody, a VIR official, and let them know who you are and where you are. Thomas Claymore, please report to the closest security personnel for us, if you would, please. Getting into a little bit of traffic now, and that's another thing that they have to manage. And Escalante has closed up the gap significantly as Joe Roberts approached the lap rider there. He had an opportunity to lay off the brakes just a little bit longer and has now gotten right to the back wheel of Joe Roberts.
Yeah, lap traffic can go your way or not go your way. It's going to depend on those guys, another variable that we're throwing in there now. And if Joe can get past a lapper and kind of use him as a pick to get a gap, that's helpful. But at the same time, if Joe gets held up by any of these guys, Richie's going to have an opportunity to make a move on him.
Do you like to be the first guy to the traffic, or do you like, or is following, more to your style?
Man, I'd like to be the first guy. It's you definitely can kind of control your own destiny to a point, and at least run a defensive line if you see that you're going to be stuck behind the lapper. So I'd rather be the front guy for sure.
Coming up on the end of lap 12, lap 13 actually. We're going to complete lap 13 here, so it's 5 to go. 5 laps to go for Joe Roberts and Richie Escalante, who have been tied together as if by a rope from the very first lap of the race. They had Travis Wyman in company there for a while, but Travis has fallen off the pace and is holding on to a third-place finish right now pretty solidly, riding kind of a lonely third around the racetrack. And that's got to be disappointing. I suppose the only way you'd like to be lonely is if you're out in front with a 10-second lead.
Yeah, it's definitely a lonely race for Travis. And, it's for Richie Escalante at this point, for him to have that carrot out in front of him, it makes life a little bit easier, to have him right there. You can kind of pace yourself off of him, sneak a little bit of a draft here and there, and it helps you stay on his rear wheel. I would say that Richie he just had a big moment coming out of 7, and now he's got a lapper in between him and Joe. So, well, he got through clean, but he lost a little bit of time there. He's going to have to try and pull him back and see if there's more lappers ahead to affect the race.
Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. But indeed, that may have been a defining moment of this race coming down the hill there as Roberts was able to slip by real quickly. Escalante held up for just the briefest of moments. Now, though, of course, he still has that rabbit to chase, that carrot out there in front of him. A little bit of the benefit of the draft down the front straightaway and down the short chute going to turn 7, but he may be a little too far back even to be feeling that draft.
Yeah, at this point, he's probably too far back. This is really where Escalante is going to have to dig deep and make sure that he keeps on his rear wheel. Otherwise, Joe may disappear off into the distance like he's done it. But the first round this year was
yeah, that was a big margin of victory. And to Richie Escalante's credit, he kept it a lot closer the second time around. The end result was still the same. Roberts on top of the podium. He's 2 for 2 this season. He won every race he entered a couple of these seasons ago, and he's certainly started off the same way here in 2015. But Joe Roberts now looks like he has a very manageable gap, and we're going to have to see if Escalante is able to put in a quicker lap. He was 0.4 of a second quicker last time around, and so that's what he has to do, is just nibble back a few tenths here and there. But Joe Roberts looks as though he's pretty much set sail in this one as we look at him once again here. Joe Roberts on the number 27 machine.
Yeah, that first split, Joe put another half a second on Richie, looking the first split, which goes from start-finish line to the bridge before turn 7. So they're going to cross over the second split now, and another 0.4 of a second. So Joe's really putting it down right now. He's trying to bridge that gap build that gap and leave him behind.
He'll hit the line with 3 laps to go. Joe Roberts seems to have made his last lap's push here now. I said earlier that working with Freddie Spencer, who always divided a race into 3 parts, as he said in his mind, you push hard in the first part of the race and try to establish a gap, try to get away from the rest of the riders. Clearly Roberts and Escalante and even Travis did that early on. And in the middle third of the race, you kind of settle in and sort of plan your move and see what you're going to do and conserve your resources. And then in the final third of the race, you're going to push. Joe Roberts has waited till the final 3 or 4 laps to make that push, but boy, is it dramatic. He has really opened a big gap now, and best he did, because he's got a whole bunch of traffic in front of him now. He's going to be picking through riders one by one for the rest of this race.
Yep, Joe's just watching those lappers, trying to pick his place where he's going to make a move on them and try to lose as little time as possible.
Let's see, he goes across the cutoff there, and it looks like he may get one going into 10. Hard on the brakes, back wheel hopping. He's going to have to do it going down the hill. He gets a tighter line, gets a little bit pushed wide there on the outside. Now he's got another rider in front of him, but boy, he sure absorbed that calmly. It could have been a Maalox moment for me.
Yeah, I mean, when you're out front like that, it's kind of a frantic moment because you're afraid to lose time and let that gap, shorten. So for him to have one here on the straightaway, he's not going to lose any time here. And now Richie's going to have to navigate through these guys as well.
That's the easy way to do it, going by on the straightaway, and we're at 2 laps to go right now. It'll be white flag next time, but Joe Roberts has this race well in hand, it appears. And as long as he rides error-free to the finish line, he will be 3 for 3 for the 2015 season. Joe Roberts, another flawless performance, at least so far, here and this time at VIR.
Yeah, Escalante is just there about a second and a half, maybe close to 2 seconds.
Yeah,
showing
definitely.
blue flags to the lappers, and making sure that they know they're coming through.
Joe Roberts up the hill is going to have 3 riders in front of him, and they're racing their own event. You see them all looking back. They saw those flags being waved, so they're looking back to see who's coming. At least 2 of them did. The third guy up in front, or the leader of that trio, he just kept his head down, and that's really his job. Be aware that the leaders are coming. You don't have to change your line necessarily unless you just do it out of courtesy, but that guy's taking advantage of the situation. He's going to make his own moves out there, and what was a tight race for position among 3 riders is now kind of a walkover for the rider who just kept his head down. Onto the front straightaway, white flag will be waving for Joe Roberts, 1 lap to go. And a masterful performance. Technically, he will have led 17 of 18 laps if he holds on for this win. Richie Escalante showed him a wheel early on and led across the line a single time. But right now we're looking at Joe Roberts on another tour de force out there. A beautiful performance by a very talented young rider that could easily be one of those stars of international racing in our future.
Yeah, at this point he's looked at his pit board. He knows he's got almost a 2-second gap over Escalante. Just smooth sailing from here. Hit your apexes, keep your eyes up. Just finish it off strong.
His last lap, a 29.3. His best lap, a 27.7. So he's slowed down just a little bit, but why not? He's got a comfortable margin. He still knows that he's got to hit his marks and not do anything dramatically different. He's still got a couple of lap riders in front of him, but he's got an enormous margin behind him to Richie Escalante, who, while he had a great chance of challenging Roberts for the win early on and perhaps even in the middle part of the race, here in these closing laps, it's been all Joe Roberts as he hits the top of the hill, comes down the roller coaster section towards Hog Pen, and onto the front straightaway for one last time. Joe Roberts will see the checkered flag here at VIR, and he will see it first. Onto the front straightaway, one more rider perhaps to pass before he gets to the start-finish line. The rider looks back, gives Joe a bit of a start there for a moment, and here he comes, Joe Roberts on the number 27, Wheels in Motion, motorsport.com.